The Negro American Labor Council was founded in 1960. A. Philip Randolph, president of the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, and Cleveland Robinson, secretary-treasurer of New York City's District 65 of the Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Workers Union, spearheaded the organization. The formation of the NALC was precipitated by a growing feeling on the part of Black workers and trade unionists that the AFL-CIO, the voice of organized labor, was not responsive to its Black members. Despite the fact that the AFL-CIO pledged to fight racial discrimination, it allowed some of its locals to maintain separate white and Black organizations. Tensions between Black workers and the AFL-CIO's executive board, headed by George Meany, had been building throughout the late 1950s and came to a head in 1959 annual AFL-CIO convention, where Rudolph challenged Meany to put an end to the Jim Crow unionism and introduced a resolution that required that all segregated locals be liquidated and eliminated. Meany wondered how Randolph could be certain that those locals wanted to be segregated, and he brashly asked Randolph, "Who in the hell appointed you as guardian of the Negro members in America?" Every resolution that the BSCP introduced, including the one calling for desegregation, was defeated. Later that year, at the 1959 convention of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, Randolph introduced a resolution that called for the formation of a National Black Labor Committee to fight and work to implement the civil rights program of the AFL-CIO. On July 18th through the 19th, 1959, Randolph invited 75 Black labor leaders to New York, where they agreed to hold the founding convention of the ALC in May in 1960. The delegates to the founding convention elected Randolph president of the ALC and Robinson vice president. Delegates contended that the AFL-CIO, despite its good faith, goodwill, and splendid pronouncements against racial discrimination, cannot be expected to move voluntarily and seriously to take positive and affirmative action for the elimination of race discrimination unless they are stimulated, prodded, and pressured to do so, both from within and without. They pledged to organize and apply that pressure. The same month the NALC was organized, Randolph presented the AFL-CIO with detailed charges of discrimination within organized labor and again called for an elimination of segregated locals. The AFL-CIO rejected the charges, and its executive board, of which Randolph was a member, voted to censure Randolph and blamed his association with militant groups for causing the gap that has developed between organized labor and the Negro community. Martin Luther King Jr. in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, C. Roy Wilkins in the NAACP, and other Black leaders quickly chastised the AFL-CIO for censuring Randolph. Soon thereafter, the NAACP released its second report on the discrimination within the AFL-CIO, charging that the union had again failed to eliminate wide-ranging racist practices. Meany countered that the critical tone of the report interfered with the laborers' organizing drives. Organized labor in the Black community had reached an impasse. When the NALC was initially organized, it attracted more than 10,000 members. Chapters formed in industrial cities such as Chicago, New York, Pittsburgh, Youngstown, and Detroit. The Detroit chapter, called the Trade Union Leadership Council, claimed the single largest membership, 2,000. By 1962, however, only 2 years after its founding convention, NALC membership had dropped to 4,000 nationwide. While Randolph attributed the decline to a lack of funds, NALC members said they found it difficult, if not impossible, to retain official union posts within their AFL-CIO locals and to be at the same time active in the NALC. Despite the drop in membership, For the first few years of its existence, the NALC remained critical of the AFL-CIO's position on race and sought to draw attention to discriminatory employment practices. The NALC was particularly critical of the AFL-CIO's organizing drives in the South, arguing that it could have done much more to stop the Ku Klux Klan and end Jim Crow unionism. The fact that the South remained unorganized, Randolph claimed at the NALC's second annual convention in 1961, was the AFL-CIO's fault, for it had never come to grips with the racial problems in the South. Instead, it adopted a policy of appeasement and compromise and defeatism that included the AFL-CIO's acceptance of Jim Crow unions, separate promotion and seniority policies for white and black workers, racial job typing that resulted in white men's and black men's jobs, and racially segregated AFL-CIO's state convention in southern cities. Again, the AFL-CIO responded by accusing the ALC and its supporters of dividing and weakening the labor movement by creating a condition of dual unionism and practicing racism in reverse. One of the ALC's best-known accomplishments was the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. The NALC initiated plans for the march at its annual convention in 1962 and solicited the support from Martin Luther King Jr., the SCLC, the Congress of Racial Equality, CORE, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, and the NAACP. Initially, organizers wanted to march to highlight the employment discrimination, but white trade union leaders criticized the march's call for a Jobs for Negroes program as preferential treatment for blacks. Despite efforts of Whitney Young, Secretary of the Urban League, and Cleveland Robinson, who insisted that the program did not amount to a preferential treatment, the controversy prompted the march's organizers to downplay the economic aspect and refocus on agitation for the passage of President John F. Kennedy's Civil Rights Bill. Although the AFL-CIO did not officially endorse the march, its industrial union department, headed by Walter Reuther, supported it, and the labor movement was well represented during the August 28th demonstration. By 1965, Randolph began almost inexplicably to make amends with Meany, and the NALC took a less critical stand against organized labor. Historians have explained Randolph's change of heart as a reaction to the emerging Black Power movement that rejected class-based interracial movements. While the NALC was making amends with Meany, black workers in Detroit were organizing the Dodge Revolutionary Union Movement, DRUM, which, like the early NALC, formed as a result of dissatisfaction with United Auto Workers and the larger organized labor movement. Robinson, who took over as president of the NALC in 1966, continued to reject compromise and tokenism, and the NALC joined the SCLC in organizing workers in Memphis and Baltimore. By 1966, however, the agenda appeared mainstream compared to Stokely Carmichael's call for Black Power. African American workers who had been attracted to the NALC now looked to the Black Power movement and more radical groups like the Revolutionary Union movements to exact change. As a result, the NALC lost its base of support, and Robinson redirected his energies into the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists, founded in Chicago in 1972.